Right Honorable Speaker, my esteemed colleagues, I remain Diri Douye, representing Yenagoa Kolokuma Opokuma Federal Constituency of Bayelsa State. I come under Order 8, Rule 4, to bring a matter of urgent national importance on the need to curb the unending circle and deluge, in brackets, severe flooding and grief in Bayelsa State and indeed Nigeria. I so move.
I'm from Bayelsa State. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I rise to the second leg of the motion as ably moved by Hon Diri. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. The ayes have it.
The unending circle of deluge, severe flooding, and grief in Bayelsa State. The House notes that floods, one of the most common hazards facing humanity, are caused by a variety of factors, including a sudden accumulation of rain, overflowing rivers, tidal surges, as well as dam failures, and can result in several humanitarian crises. The House further notes, with utmost concern, that flooding is a scourge in many communities in Nigeria, and it is exacerbated by poor infrastructure, unsatisfactory enforcement of development regulations, and lack of planning to protect against...
Honorable Kangiwa, please, resume your seat, please.
Inundation.
Appropriation Committee Chairman, please, finish up and allow the Speaker, please.
And that this has become an annual cycle of deluge and grief, not only in Bayelsa, but in Nigeria. Aware that this year's flood has affected 12 states and upward of 80 local government areas have been earmarked as frontline zones affecting 2.92 million people. Over 200 people died and displaced, in excess of 1.5 million of them, and that humanitarian needs are pressing and diseases such as cholera are a major risk, according to the National Emergency Agency, NEMA. Cognizant of this, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, 2018 seasonal rainfalls prediction indicated that so much water would pour over the banks of the West Africa, two major rivers, that is River Benue and River Niger, into numerous cities and communities once it rains, unless adequate provisions was made to accommodate the huge volume of water, especially in the areas that are contiguous to the rivers. Flooding was inevitable. The House regrets that notwithstanding these warnings, such regular early warnings, including from the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, that the Benue and Niger rivers were close to reaching levels in 2012, led to floods that killed more than 350 people and wiped out scores of homes, farms, and properties. The federal government, far from being proactive, has continued to function more as an information bureau, providing statistics of casualties rather than perform its core constitutional mandate to protect citizens by anticipating and mitigating disease, as well as responding appropriately during emergencies. The House is distressed that Bayelsa State is one of the worst impacted, and the floods have damaged agricultural lands, homes, power, telecommunications, supplies, with no fewer than 300,000 people displaced, and the numbers keep growing even as the water levels continue to rise daily. Further distressed to report that the floods have sacked 49 communities across the 8 local government councils in the state, including but not limited to Sampo, Kayama, Odi, Opokuma, Sabagria, Igbedi, in Kolokuma, Opokuma council areas. A substantial part of the state capital itself, Yenagoa, and its environs, especially in Tombia, Agudame Petiama, Akemfa, as well as Ofonibri, Amasoma, Ekewe, Olubabri, Angiama, Otua, Oporoma in southern Niger Council areas. Imiringi, Ayamogbea, and Otuogidi in Ogbea Council areas, and Trofane, Adababri, Odoni, Sagbama, Tororua, and Bulorua in Sagbama Council areas. And equally, in the Keremon local government area, we have Tamigbe, Forotorugbene 1 to 4, Aleibri, Obrigbene, Ayamasa, Peretorugbene, Amanagbene, all in the Keremon council areas. And finally, Eguaba in Brass council areas. The House commends the resolve and exemplary leadership of His Excellency, Right Honorable Henry Seraki Dixon, first for closing all schools in Bayelsa with immediate effect to enable the management to take students back to their parents for safe custody. Again, for converting the schools to IDP camps, and strongly support his appeal to the federal government to significantly increase the level of humanitarian assistance to the state and declare the state as a state of national disaster. A national disaster zone as it did on the 18th of September 2018 in respect of Delta, Kogi, Anambra, and Niger states.
Honorable Ario, please.
Also commends and appreciates the initiative of NEMA to set up a state office in Yenagoa for the evacuation of displaced persons to the internally displaced camps, and urge the agency to further scale up its intervention to mitigate such terrible calamity, prevent the outbreak of epidemics, and avert the collapse of social order. The House therefore resolves to call on the federal government, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, the Ecological Fund, and related government agencies to be more proactive in their strategy to tackle the seasonal menace of flooding, investment in better drainages, and improvement to infrastructure to aid the development of communities in coastal areas, better maintenance of dams, as well as the construction of dikes to keep flooding in check. 2, to redouble its efforts in bringing succor to Bayelsa State and similar deluge states to avert greater humanitarian crises and epidemics. to call on the federal government to establish permanent shelter centers in the 8 local government areas of the state to deal with the dilemma of accommodating displaced persons during floods, given that Bayelsa State is prone to this phenomenon due to its below sea level status. And finally, mandate the House Committees on NEMA and Environment to interface with the National Emergency Management Agency, the Ecological Fund, and other related MDAs to ensure that the National Emergency and Disaster Response Preparedness is sharpened and aligned to international best practices, and report back to the House in 2 weeks' time for further legislative action. I so move.
Aye. Those against it say nay. The ayes have it.